Hey everyone, and welcome back to Raging Levine's reviews of all the cards from Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths, and Commander 2020 in the context of casual social Commander. I like to play decks that are around a 5 or 6 on the command zone scale. I'm not big on tutors or infinite combos. I'm not really a big CEDH person, so that should tell you what you should expect to get out of this review. Kind of the middle of the road Commander games, the casual fun kitchen table games, that's what I look at. So let's start with 2 cards from Ikoria, and then move on to Commander 2020. We have Thieving Otter, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Otter. Whenever it deals damage to an opponent, draw a card. There's not much here for Commander, but Otters are adorable, and I'm happy to see this one. Go get that purse, get that money. That's yours, Otter. Next up, we have Bastion of Remembrance, 2 and a black for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier token, and whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life, and you gain a life. So you're getting a token in the bargain, but more importantly, you're getting yet another Zulaport Cutthroat style effect. How long is it going to take before we actually have too many of these cards in Commander? I mean, okay, don't get me wrong, this is sweet, and I'm glad we get to pick and choose the best ones, but this card's really awesome. It's an enchantment, which means that if somebody wraths, say, for example, you, and you get to make people lose a bunch of life, and you gain a bunch of life with this card, it's still around for the next time you do that. That is huge. I think this card's fantastic. We're going to see it in a lot of sacrifice decks. Now we're on to reprints. We've got some reprints here in Commander 2020, 6 of them to go through really fast. I'm happy to see pretty much all of these. Jace, Architect of Thought, Deadly Tempest, Masked Admirers, upshifted to rare, but that doesn't really matter. Nahiri the Harbinger, Villainous Wealth, which I love, and Silent Arbiter. Cool. Let's get to the new stuff. Ravenous Gigantetherium, 5 green for a 3/3 beast with Devourer 3, and whenever it enters the battlefield, it deals X damage divided as you choose among up to X target creatures where X is its power, and each of those creatures deals damage back equal to their power to the Ravenous Gigantetherium. So it's a mega fight, kind of divided like the original Pelucranos, but you're getting very good value on the Devourer. Devourer 3 is huge, don't sleep on that. If you're looking to make a lot of creatures dead, including whatever nonsense you sacrifice to the Gigantetherium, you could do a lot worse, especially in mono green. I think this card's very cool, and I'm going to be checking it out. Decoy Gambit, 2 and a blue for an instant for each opponent. Choose up to 1 target creature that player controls, then return that creature to its owner's hand unless its controller has you draw a card. I'm rarely a fan of giving opponents choices, and this card's no exception. It's not really a draw 3, and it's not really a bounce 3. It's well costed, but still, I don't like giving the opponents choices because you never really get what you want, and the longer the game goes, if players are eliminated, this card's actually going to get worse. So, not a huge fan of this card. Next up is Nascent Metamorph, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 shapeshifter. Whenever it attacks or blocks, target opponent reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card. Then that player puts all cards revealed this way on the bottom of their library in a random order. But of course, I didn't say the good part, which is that Nascent Metamorph becomes a copy of that card until end of turn. This is a fun card. Super unreliable, super random, doesn't take advantage of ETB effects. It's fun. You're not playing a card like this for the power level. You're playing it because it might do anything, and you're going to get some sweet story equity out of it. So keep that in mind. You know, maybe cast Scheming Symmetry on somebody and then see if you can get them with Nascent Metamorph, but that probably won't happen because they probably won't pick a creature. Kazur, Ruthless Stalker, 3 and a green for a 3/3 legendary creature human warrior, partner with Ukima, Stalking Shadow. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. So this is a mini Necropolis Regent. Unblockable creatures, or creatures that are hard to block, are going to grow larger turn after turn. Something like Slitherblade will really shine. But what's really going to do well with Kazur is his partner, Ukima, Stalking Shadow. 1 a blue and a black for a 2/2 legendary Whale Wolf, which is just the most Ikoria creature type ever. It can't be blocked, and when it leaves the battlefield, it deals X damage to target player, and you gain X life, where X is its power. Here's an unblockable creature. It's going to get stronger and stronger. It's going to deal commander damage, and regardless of how it leaves the battlefield, it's going to dome an opponent. I love this card. I can't wait to kill people with commander damage off this. I love doing that, and I'm going to be really excited about playing cards like Gudul Lurker and Silhana Ledgewalker to get people as well. Next up, we have Aeon Frolicker, 2 blue for a 5/5 flying elemental otter who is just adorable. When it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, target opponent takes an extra turn after this one. Until your next turn, you and planeswalkers you control gain protection from that player. So for their extra turn and their regular turn, unless you're casting this out of turn sequence, you're going to have protection from that player. But your non-planeswalker permanents won't, which means they could easily use one of their extra turns to, I don't know, blow up your 5/5 flyer, which should be easy to do because you gave them an extra turn. I'm going to try this card. You might be able to give somebody a present, somebody who's not ramping. You don't want to give an extra turn to a green player usually, but somebody who's not ramping or drawing a lot of cards could really appreciate this. Give a turn to your local Mardu player and see how much they love you afterwards. Hopefully they get targeted afterwards instead of you. Martial Impetus. Another card in the Impetus cycle, 2 and a white for an aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and is goaded. And whenever it attacks each other creature that's attacking one of your opponents, and that's yours, you, the person who controls Martial Impetus, gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So this actually incentivizes the person with this creature to attack your opponents with not just this one, which they have to because it's goaded, but all their creatures, because those are going to get bigger. That's really interesting. I think this is a powerful political tool, and I'm interested to try it out. Next we have Verge Rangers. 3/3 first striking human scout for 2 and a white. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. Okay, cool. As long as an opponent controls more lands than you, you may play lands from the top of your library. You don't get extra land plays. So this is like a bad Oracle of Moldiah or Courser of Krufix that only functions if you're behind somebody on land and only stops you from missing land drops. It doesn't actually ramp you. I'm not really excited about this card. I think white has enough land taxes that you can avoid missing land drops in white decks. I don't think Verge Rangers is a good way to do it. It's super unreliable, too. It relies on the top card of your library. I don't think this card's good, and I think if we want to give white ramp, we should just give white ramp. Give us more core cartographers. No half measures. Let's just go all the way. Species Specialist. 2 and 2 black for a 2/3 human warrior. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, and whenever a creature of the chosen type dies, you may draw a card. It's great in or against a tribal deck. If your opponent is going off, sacrificing a bunch of Saproling tokens, you can get some value from their business, but wouldn't you rather just get extra value from your own business, rely on your own stuff? I think that's more what you're going to be doing with Species Specialist. I'm really interested to see how this performs in a Griswold deck if you name Plant. Giving everybody a creature of a particular type seems like a fun way to get a ton of value out of Species Specialist. Next up we have Deflecting SWAT, another free spell, sometimes free anyway. 2 and a red for an instant, but if you control a commander you may cast it without paying its mana cost. You may choose new targets for target spell or ability. I'm a big fan of this one. I like effects like this, but I hate paying for them. I like cards like Bolt Bend that make them cheaper, and if cheap equals free, this is going to be a fantastic card. You can redirect a targeted draw spell, a targeted removal spell. There's tons of things that you can change the landscape of the game just by moving that targeting arrow from one spot to another, i.e. away from you and towards the things you want to destroy, or away from your opponent and towards you to get the value. Next up we have Psychic Impetus. 2 and a blue for a enchantment aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and is goaded, and whenever it attacks you scry 2. This is fine. Like, scry 2 is nearly equivalent to draw a card, so one attack gets you almost a card, but is that really what you want for 2 and a blue? It's got to attack multiple times to really get you value here, is the point. You really need to be getting value out of the goading and not getting attacked by that specific creature for this to be worth it. Predatory Impetus. Okay, I like this one a little better. 4 and a green, though, much more costly. Enchanted creature gets +3/+3, must be blocked if able, and is goaded. Okay, so put this on a big creature, turn it into the Abyss. See if you can get your opponents to multi-block it. Maybe put it on a Trampler. Put it on something with Infect, and just make sure you can deal with it before it comes around to you. This card's interesting. I don't know. This is another card that, the more political cards, I think it's harder to see what they do until you play with them. I've played with the Vows enough to kind of know what this will do, but the goading is really interesting because the creature can't just stay home. So we'll see how these play out. Daring Fiend Bonder, 3 and a black for a 5/1 hasty human warlock. It attacks each combat if able, and then you can pay 1 and a black and exile it from your graveyard to put an indestructible counter on target creature at sorcery speed. This creature wants to die, and your opponents will be happy to oblige with their worst creature, because it's a 5/1, so it's gonna die. There are easier and cheaper ways to make things indestructible. Dealing 5 damage maybe to an opponent in the bargain, if you're lucky, is fine. There are easier ways to make stuff indestructible. Darksteel Plate exists. The counter is a little more permanent, but if the creature gets bounced, goodbye counter. Whereas if the creature gets bounced, if you have Darksteel Plate, just attach that Darksteel Plate back over. I don't love this card. Not big on it. Agitator Ant. 2 and a red for a 2/2 insect. At the beginning of your end step, each player may put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature they control. That includes you, by the way. Goad each creature that had counters put on it this way. So you're giving away a lot of counters. You're giving, if you have 3 opponents, +6/+6 away to your opponents. Now, for a turn, they have to attack each other with these creatures. But if those creatures survive, they can just come back at you later. And you've only grown your board by +4/+4 at that point, 2 turns later. You're the last person who gets to use these creatures to attack. So I don't think Agitator Ant is a good way to get ahead on the board. I think it's probably a great way to have fun, though. This card looks fun. I'm going to try it out, but I don't think it's strong per se. Next up, we have Glade Muse. 2 and a green for a 2/4 beast. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, that player draws a card. So what's the worst case scenario with Glade Muse? So you play it, and before your turn's over, an opponent casts a removal spell, kills Glade Muse, and gets a card back. That's bad. That's a really bad fail case, where you've just used a card to give one of your opponents a card. That's going to happen a medium amount of the time. It seems harder to break the symmetry on this than it is on something like Fecundity, where you can really do it right away that turn. I'm not a big fan of Glade Muse. I think it's going to bite you in the butt a lot, but I'm interested to see how it plays out. I'm not optimistic, though. Next up is Manscape Refractor, a card I'm much more optimistic about. Costs 3. It's an artifact. Manscape Refractor enters the battlefield tapped, has all activated abilities of all lands on the battlefield, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to pay the activation costs of those abilities. So let's say somebody else has a land, a Kessig Wolf Run, that you're not in the colors for, you can't activate. Well, now you have a Kessig Wolf Run that you can activate, and its name is Manscape Refractor. If your opponent has a Maze of Ith, so do you. This is also good for fixing. It's kind of Felwar Stone-ish, but it does enter tapped, so keep that in mind. This is a really cool card. People are going to forget what it does at different times. They're going to forget, oh, that means you also have Maze of Ith. Shoot. And that's going to be fun. Really, really fun. This card is complex. It's going to cause some headaches, but I think overall it's going to be a great time. Next up is Selective Adaptation. Whew, a lot of words. 4 green for a sorcery. Let's gear up for this one. All right. Reveal the top 7 cards of your library. Choose from among them a card with flying, a card with first strike, and so on, okay, for double strike, death touch, haste, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. I ran out of fingers. I had to count on my elbows there. Sorry about that. Put one of the chosen cards onto the battlefield, the other chosen cards in your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. Okay, so you're getting a creature for your 6 mana. That's good. You're going to draw some others, and it's predicated on having all these abilities, so this is probably for Cathril. You draw some creatures with abilities, you put one in play, you lose some of them to the graveyard, you get some abilities on Cathril. Maybe you discard the extra ones for value to some other discard engine. You got to be building around these abilities hard, is kind of the point of this card. And if you're making that work for you, not just with this card, not just with Cathril, but with other synergies too, you're going to go a long way. Next up is Haldan, Avid Arcanist. 2 and a blue for a 1/4 human wizard, legendary of course, partners with Paco, Arcane Retriever, and you may play non-creature cards from exile, non-creature, but play, interesting, with fetch counters on them. Wait, what? What's a fetch counter? Well, I'm sure we'll find out from the Arcane Retriever, that's kind of a hint. If you exiled them, sure, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast those spells. Okay, so this seems like it's probably a powerful value engine for casting other people's non-creatures. And it turns out it is. Here's Paco, Arcane Retriever, 3, a red and a green for a 3/3 legendary elemental hound. It partners with Haldan, of course. It's got haste. And whenever it attacks, you exile the top card of each player's library, so yours too, not just your opponent's cards, your library too, and put a fetch counter on each of them. And then put a +1/+1 counter on Paco for each non-creature card exiled this way. That's pretty cool. So it's going to grow pretty much every time it attacks, and it's going to round up a bunch of spells for you. You get some lands, you get some artifacts, enchantments, sorceries, instants, planeswalkers. No creatures, though. No creatures. Non-creature spells only are cards that you get to cast with Haldan. You do get to play them, so you can play lands, but you don't need to play the lands because Haldan lets you ignore the color requirements. I think this is a really fun combo, unpredictable, lets you use cards from your opponent's decks, which I love to do. I can't wait to do some teamer ramping and cast some other people's cards. And my own. I get one of my own, too. That's fun. Parasitic Impetus. Oh, we're back on the downswing. 2 and a black for an aura. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2 and is goaded. Okay, so if we like that effect, I like this card. But whenever an enchanted creature attacks, its controller loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. That's very marginal. I understand this card costs 3, but that does not make me want to play this card. If you really feel that strongly about the goad, more power to you, but the effect is almost non-existent. Trin, Champion of Freedom, 3 and a white for a legendary human soldier, 3/3, partners with Sylvar, Devourer of the Free. That sounds ominous. Okay, well, let's ignore that. Moving on. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. It doesn't seem very good, right? Like, you only get 1 token. You only get it if you attacked. I guess you could attack with the token and then have it blocked and have it die and then get another token. That doesn't seem very good. Seems like what would happen most of the time. Let's see what Sylvar looks like. Oh, Sylvar, Devourer of the Free. 3, a black and a red for a 4/2 legendary cat nightmare. Partner with Trin. Menace, sacrifice a human, put a +1/+1 counter on Sylvar. It gains indestructible until end of turn. So my favorite thing about this is the flavor. We have Trin, the champion of freedom, who says, hey, come hang out, be a soldier, we're going to win, we're going to have freedom. And then you get eaten by the cat nightmare because it was all a scam the whole time. I think there's some fun to be had with deck building around that theme. You know, make some human tokens and then just feed them to the cat. That seems like fun. You'll deal some commander damage with Sylvar. Not ultra powerful, but looks like a good time. I'm interested in building this. And then finally, Cartographers Hawk. Ooh, a bird. I love birds. 1 and a white for a 2/1 flyer. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player who controls more lands than you. Oh, another one of these. Return it to its owner's hand. If you do, you may search your library for a plains card, put it on the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. Okay, so the flavor makes sense, right? The Hawk goes out, it surveys other lands, now you have a map, Hawk comes back to you, you put your plains on the battlefield, everything's great. Flavor, win, 10 out of 10. Gameplay, I mean, it's a small investment, but you have to keep casting it over and over, and it's only catching you up. And you have to attack with it, and you have to hit, and it has to be somebody with more land than you, who's going to be the hardest target, and the person that you probably want to frustrate the least, because, well, they've got more resources to bring to bear. I don't think this card is good. I think it's cool, but I don't think it's good. Just give us more core cartographers. Let's just go back to that. I liked core cartographer. That card is reasonable. I understand it has to cost more in colors where it can be easily blinked. Give us more of those. Make them costly. It's fine. We'll figure it out. So that's it. That's the end of the review for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the likes button, the subscribe button, the comment button. If you can find any other buttons on this page that are good for me, maybe I don't know about them because I'm old, press those too. That would be nice. Obviously, I do this so that you folks can have entertainment and somebody to argue with about how good these cards are, or maybe just maybe you actually care what I think. Either way is fine with me as long as you're having fun. Just be cool to me and, more importantly, to each other. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, whatever time it is. I'm really rambling on at the end here. I'm just going to say bye. Goodbye. Video's over. I'll see you. We're done here. You don't have to keep watching me wave. In fact, I'd prefer if you didn't. You can just go now. I'm just smiling. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Goodbye. Goodbye. You can turn the video off now. It's okay.